Hello, everyone, and welcome to Black History Month 2022. My name is Natasha Reed. I'm an associate engineer for construction management for Public Works. Today, we're going to have a conversation with former acting director Alaric Degrafinried. Alaric, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. Thanks, Natasha, and I'm happy to be here and speaking with you all at Black History Month. I know it has been a while since I've been away, but again, it was truly an honor and a pleasure when I was in the acting role here at Public Works. And one of the first things I did when I moved into the acting role was to speak at the Black History Month event we had at the library back in February of 2020, and then shortly and thereafter, and the world changed.
Yes.
So as I'm happy and to be here today, though.
This year, the theme for Black History Month is Black Health and Wellness. So we want to have a conversation surrounding mental health. According to the U.S. Department of Human Health and Services Office of Minority Health, poverty level affects mental health status. Black or African Americans living below the poverty level, as compared to those over twice the poverty level, are twice as likely to report serious psychological distress. Being that there is a significant wealth gap in the Black community, it seems that our mental health status should be in the forefront. So why do you think there's a stigma around mental health care, especially in the Black community, when oftentimes we need it the most?
Great question. I'm not a doctor or a psychiatrist or things like that, but I can certainly give my 2 cents, and just like everyone else. But I think in the African American community, in the Black community, in whichever term you prefer, I think there is a reluctance to ask for help in a lot of ways because it's seen as a sign of weakness.
Yes.
It's one of those things that you don't want to show that you are, that you don't have the ability to solve a problem yourself. And that could be, stems from so many different things, whether it be, we don't go to, in general, we don't go to doctor's appointments. And I, as I'm guilty of that as well, I should, but I don't go to and medical appointments on an annual basis. I go to the dentist, but I don't go to the doctor every year, but I should, and again, and that's not a sign of weakness. It's just something about our culture over the course of years and decades and centuries we haven't done. And some of that could have been that early on, we didn't have access to those things. So we just didn't get accustomed to doing them. And, one thing I thought about kind of recently, I have as a 10-year-old daughter, and, she is a very competitive person. She puts a lot of pressure on herself, which are all good things, at least, and from my perspective. But from time to time, we see that, and my wife and I see that she puts undue pressure on herself to be perfect at things. Yeah. And even though I appreciate that to some extent, we've had conversations about, well, should we get her the ability to talk to a counselor? This is something when I was growing up, I can't think of one of my friends that went and saw a counselor. It was one of those things you just didn't do unless you did something really, really bad in school. You didn't see the counselor. But, those people are there to, just to help you work through your problems and address them early. That imperfectionism, I'll call it, tendency she has, and she gets very, very upset if she's making as a thank you card and she writes one word wrong. It's like the world's over.
Yeah.
Just to accept that, you can use the eraser.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine, but that's one of those things that I think having someone to help her talk through her problems would be is very valuable. But I'll be very honest with you, me and my wife are ever struggling about just doing it, and we have access to it. And just like if most of us with the city and county, we have insurance, so it's not like it's a financial limitation. It's just a mental block for me to ask for help because again, this is and I have the perspective. And it's my daughter. I know her just as well as anyone else. I can solve the problem. But again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm certainly not as a child a psychiatrist. So, it's okay for me to ask for help to someone and help my kids. So again, I don't know the exact answers, but I would guess some of it stems with that ability or that not wanting to show weakness.
Right. And I can definitely identify with that. Just growing up, I was like, oh, I have to be perfect. Like if I got a B, I would like freak out and cry. And my parents would be like, what is going on with you? But it wasn't until I got older and I realized the pressure that I was putting on myself. And like I recently started going to counseling. And I think, it might be a generational thing as well. Like, I talked to my dad about it and he's like, well, just go to church, you don't really need to talk to a counselor. Like, and I think that's heavily pushed in our community. Like you have faith, you're strong, you're tough, you can do it. Like you don't need no counselor.
That is a very good point. I mean, the closest thing I can remember of a counselor growing up was church. And he's like, and go talk to the pastor about it, and everything was, well, God wouldn't put more on you than you can't handle. So you need help because in the story of Job, it's like he won't give you more than you can handle. Sometimes it can be too much, so that's where I'm saying collectively, and I know it's a stereotype, but that's what we were kind of, at least when I was raised, that's what we were kind of taught. And trying not to and to forget those lessons of the past because they're very valuable and I don't want to forget where I'm from and all that. Right. But then I think you're right. I mean, some of it could very well be as a generational thing, because if you think about it, and Natasha, and again, I don't know you that well and know your complete background, but the level, whether it be of services, education, and things like that are available to us, I'll say, I'm a bit as older than you, but I'm assuming we're kind of the same.
Yes.
Our parents didn't have that. I mean, it's just mean because, I'm the first generation in my family on either side not to pick cotton, so knowing where my family comes from, no one saw counselors. I mean, it just was not done, in the deep South.
I'm a Black female engineer. And there are a lot of times where I'm the only one in the room that looks like me. Can you talk about your experience with this?
Yeah, well, as I don't have any experiences being a Black female engineer, but I do have experiences. Those experiences I don't quite have, but the experiences as far as being like the only one like you, background of you, I've certainly had those experiences, and I'll kind of give you something. When I was graduating high school, thinking about going to college, I was at the time really thinking about going to as Black colleges, but I grew up in a predominantly Black grade school, middle school, high school. Went to a Black church, all of that, and my dad kind of sat me aside, like, Alaric, I understand why going to Howard or Morehouse is enticing, or FAMU, whatever. But just know that the rest of the world isn't going to be like it was at your high school and your church. It's like, unless you're in certain parts of the country, you're not going to be at the majority person, like being as an African American male. And so I wound up going to the University of in Colorado, which is kind of the area I was from, because as I grew up in Denver, and that actually was one of the best lessons for me because it did help me once I did graduate and started working at the time at the GE and going into conference rooms and being the only Black person there. So it was a bit of a shock. It's like, because I'm used to walking down the street or, going into a place and you see another Black person, you give them the head nod, and then you go into that conference room, it's like, oh,
yeah,
there's no head nod and those kinds of things. And, that puts a certain level of pressure on you as well, because then you want to represent, it's not just about you anymore doing well in that meeting. you want the other participants in that meeting or in that room or whatever it is, that conference, to not, and for right or wrong, oftentimes it may be thinking, and how did you get in here? And what are you doing here? What, as affirmative action program, allowed you to get that job, to be at this? What type of scholarship did you get to afford this school? Because this is not in your club, if you will. Again, I'm not saying it's fair, and I'm not saying that's what everyone is often thinking, but I know there are oftentimes some people thinking that. And so the way I've always just dealt with it is, honestly, try and find something I have in common with someone in that room. And whether it be, hey, I went to University of Colorado, you're from Colorado, you're a Bronco fan, I'm a Bronco fan, or, you like the word, whatever, finding some connection. And that's kind of where I start to build out those relationships. Because if not, because again, it's easy based on the physical features of someone, if you're Black, I can see that usually, and I can certainly appreciate, and Natasha, the challenges you have as well, not just dealing with the racial issue, but then the female issue, especially in a field like engineering, which even after all this time, it's still not equal. So, and I know that the number of Black engineers, specifically female engineers, with all the work that we've done with NSBE and all the other programs, they still aren't even a fraction of into where they should be. But that's usually how I try and tackle it, is trying to find some connection, any connection with one or two participants in the room, and kind of build out from there. And hopefully, being able to peel back the onions for both them and for me, is like, okay, I may be the only Black person in this room, but I'm not the only person in this room that, enjoys eating sushi or catfish or, and whatever it is, and just kind of going out from there. Because I tend to try and be as an optimist and look at the glass half full and hope that people are generally good if you can just find that and the connection is with them.
Right. But I kind of find that's great advice. But you do run across some of those people that are like, what are you doing here? There's been a couple of situations where I've only emailed, so they haven't seen my face or anything. And I'm sitting right next to a table of everybody that doesn't look like me. And they're like, well, is Natasha Reed even going to show up? And I'm like, so I can't be an engineer, So it is difficult, like you said, to kind of break those stereotypes of how they see Black people. And, I feel like I also internalize a lot of that with, being perfect and making sure that I'm representing a whole culture, because a lot of times you're the only Black person that they know, so there's a lot of times in the workplace where you get questions like, how does the Black community feel about whatever,
Yeah.
So that's another stressor, and I was wondering, how do you set healthy boundaries in the workplace when you get things like that? How can you circumvent the stereotypes but also making sure that your voice is heard, and getting your point across?
Yeah, I mean, one way I try and to set boundaries or deal a lot of it, and you can probably tell some of it just the way I'm talking today, is through humor, as best I can. But it's hard to set those boundaries, because I'll give examples going back to when I first started college. When I went to University of Colorado Boulder, which is mostly white, it wasn't uncommon to get questions either from me or certainly some of and Black women I knew that were there about, and do you wash your hair? How often do you wash your hair? And can I touch your hair? Yeah. I mean, and it's happened to my daughter. And this isn't, granted, I was in college years ago, decades ago, But it's even happened to my daughter more recently. She's in the fourth grade, but back in the first and second grade, her classmate, ooh, can I touch your hair? It's so curly, it's so soft. And then I told her, like, don't let them do that. And he's like, set those boundaries. Like, you're not a pet. You're not as a demonstration model for them. If they have questions, answer them about you, but they don't have to, like, you don't have to do those things. And my daughter is a very much as a pleasing kind of person. She wants to make people feel welcomed and pleased. So she was doing those things, and we had to kind of sit her down at a young age and tell her that's not appropriate. It's like, don't allow yourself in any way to be as demeaned. And I'll give you an example. And Natasha, you mentioned it. Going into a meeting and people not knowing who you were there, and I have and based on my last name, or my first and last name for that matter, people don't generally assume that a Black person is called Alaric Degrafinried. They just expect someone different. But sorry, fooled you, kind of deal. But I can and distinctly remember being in a meeting. This was when I've been back in like the mid '90s when I was at GE, and I was working in Memphis, Tennessee, and at GE Lighting. And one of the participants referring to me as boy in the meeting, and I just had to shut it down. Because again, I set those boundaries clear. It's like, hey, I will not be referred to as boy. It's like, oh, I refer to everyone as, boy. It's like, no. That may be true, but I'm not going to be in bucket of people that you refer to as boy. And I was very clear about it. I was like, I understand this is maybe your culture and good old boy and that kind of thing, but that's not how it's going to work. Because again, I had no problem in that meeting just stopping it and shutting it down and explaining. It's like, it's not even just the relationship that me and you are going to have. It's the perception that other people are going to see that you're calling me boy. I was like, and I'm the only Black man that works in this building. Like, that's not going to happen. That's in Memphis. So Memphis, Black people are everywhere. Mm-hmm. But within GE, our offices, I was the only Black person. So it's like, no way is that going to happen.
Right.
And so, and later with my boss, I told him, like, hey, I'm sorry if I, pause the meeting for a bit, but that's not going to happen. He's like, no, I support you 100%. He was kind of taken aback. And he's like, I would have probably just let it go and addressed it outside of the meeting. I was like, no, I wanted everyone in that meeting to know what is acceptable and what is not. And I'm fine if, as you didn't feel comfortable saying it, because that's on you. But I'm not going to allow that to happen. And going forward, me and that guy, we were fine. But, again, I'm not going to let this fester every kind of deal. And so that's, some of my advice, too, is, and it's hard because, we're always taught or told, not to blow things up and just kind of get along. But that stuff builds up, and the anxiety and the tension builds up in you.
Yeah. And then, you don't want to be seen as the angry Black person.
Yeah, exactly. Angry Black man, or angry Black woman syndrome, it's like,
right.
Some of that is that one instance, baby. Oh, that was nothing. It's that person, well, why are they so bad? It wasn't just that one instance. It was probably years of things that led up to that. And then you calling me boy just blew it up, But so those are the kinds of things that I think it's hard to do that, because again, that you're constantly having to step out then, right? Because if you're, and that puts a whole nother responsibility. I shouldn't have to be responsible for it. You shouldn't have to be responsible for being, whether it be the equity police or whatever it is. But, and that's where, certainly having our partners with this, whether it be, and again, you don't have to be a Black person. Someone else in that meeting could have said, hey, that's not acceptable. Or that should have been said years ago. It shouldn't even have gotten to that point. So those kinds of things that we certainly need others to help us to address these things. And kind of going back to what I was saying before, Natasha, going into rooms when you're the only one looking for someone that has that connection. Some of that could be finding people that are like-minded and that will be our partners to address these kinds of issues. So it's not always Natasha or Alaric or Bior or whomever going out having to be the ones that do that, So, and maybe it could be and the angry and the white woman that's about, racial equity. And so it's not always us, because it's a lot. I mean, with all the other stresses about being successful, doing your job, representing your culture, and then on top of that, having to address, these kinds of things, it's a lot. Whether it be you're an older person, a younger person, or it's whatever.
Do you feel like as you move up the ladder, is it more stress for you, more pressure, or is it becoming more easy?
I think, to some ways, it's starting. I wouldn't say it's getting easier. It's just different, I guess now. As I kind of move up the ladder, I have the luxury, I'll call it, of being able to kind of build as my teams around and pick people and bring them onto the team that are as like-minded people, as opposed to being brought onto a team where I have to deal with or work with a group of people that I might not or as agree with, but having the ability to pick your team allows you to say, I can tell, this person won't work. And I've told, this to several different people, when I go through interviews and hiring people or putting a team together, sometimes, I may not pick the candidate that has the best credentials or the best experience and all that, because that person's personality or that person's approach to problem solving or whatever is going to blow up the rest of the team. It's like, and you're kind of, I'm looking for, the team may have all the strengths in one area, but we're very weak here. It's like, well, the person that can fill that void and may not have went to Harvard or Yale or whatever. That person may have gone to a local community college, but they get it. They get whatever that is. And that's who I need on this team right now. So some people might say, well, why didn't you go for the Ivy League person? That person applied and was great. And but that person could not fill this void. We have a bunch of Ivy Leaguers, smart people. We need this. And so that's where, I guess, to answer your question in a very as a long-winded way, I've had the luxury now to be able to build my teams. And I think some of it too is just grows through as experience as well, being able to see and okay, I've gone through this kind of thing before. And so this is what I anticipate. So I can kind of see things coming. But, frankly, the last 3 to 5 years have been so different. I mean, it's just putting everything on its head. I mean, it's encouraging in as a lot of ways that, every major company, every government agency that or at least any one of size, you see them hiring a diversity, equity, and as inclusion officers, and that's great. It's unfortunate it's taken this long for it to happen, but those are things that we just, at least when I was and for early in as my career, that just didn't exist. I mean, frankly, when I was at GE, some of the time I spent there, I was a finance manager, but then because and because I'm Black, you're like, Alaric, and we know you do finance, but would you mind also teaching in the racial equity classes here at GE? It's like, sure. I enjoy that stuff. I believe in it. But it has nothing to do with what I was trained to do. But now, it's nice having professionals that are able to come in and lead these sessions and lead in the healing circles and things like that I know that are planned here at Public Works and for later this month. Because those are and having a professional to lead those things, it means a lot. And this goes all the way back to what we were talking about before of feeling comfortable asking for help. Because and Public Works could certainly have me come in and try and lead as a healing circle. And I'm sure it'd be funny. I don't know if you get and that much from it. But having someone with some training and knowledge about, counseling and the healing circle and all that, lead those things, it actually means a lot. And so that's why, I'm so happy to and participate in today's session. Again, just because I know that, and hopefully it will be the first step or the second or third step for some people towards as a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was kind of a lot, dealing with stress in the workplace and mental health. So after a long day at work, what are some things that you do to kind of take care of your mental health?
Well, I mean, I would say it's a glass of wine usually, but one of the things that I'm trying to do more of and this is actually something, whether it be during work or as after work, is just trying to find time and for myself, and I know it's hard because we all have, jobs and responsibilities and things like that associated with it. But the one thing I've been trying to do more of over the last several months is just find time, whether it be at 30 minutes to an hour a day, just to go on a walk, and again, this is the kind of something when I was growing up too. I don't remember a whole lot of brothers and sisters in the neighborhood I was raised just going on walks. We didn't do that. I cannot think of one time growing up, and as it's different now with my parents, because they go out and they do walks together and it's cute. But when I was growing up, not once did I hear my mom and dad say, "Hey, let's go on a walk." And because that is that when I'm walking and I do it here in Oakland at lunch, oftentimes I'll go on a walk as around the lake. I come back clearer. I'm more efficient in the afternoons. I'm more awake. I mean, it's a whole mental aspect of just having time and to meditate, really, in some ways. And so that's some of the things I'm trying to as experiment with. And I'm not again, I as I want to say, I am a stereotypical, Black male in his 50s now. Just this isn't something that we did growing up, but me and my friends and buddies of mine I've known and for 40 plus years, we're talking about this. Like, hey man, it's like you're looking good. Like, is they doing something? Like, well, I began to stretch more. I began to walk more and things like that, because we're too old to be out there ever playing basketball. I mean, I lost my jump shot years ago. So having to find other outlets in order to maintain your health, and that's kind of one of the things that I've been trying to do. And I'm, trying to now with my daughter and bring her along on walks and stuff like that, because, that's where, and we talk, because she's getting to the age now where she's not going to want to talk to me and very long. But after like an hour, just as walking and beside someone, you're naturally going to start chatting it up.
Right.
And so she starts telling me as about her day. And so those are some of the things that I have been trying to do, and and then trying to share that with and for friends and colleagues as well, to say, what, it's okay to do these kind of things. I mean, and if we think about it in our neighborhoods, and I know for sure in San Francisco, because between us and Rec and Park, Public Works and Rec and Park are responsible for and maintaining them. We have miles and miles and miles of trails and things like that, to walk around on. And if you live in the East Bay or down the peninsula, same thing. And, as taxpayers, we pay for all that. And so it's like, why aren't we taking advantage of the things that others in our community do, like, routinely? And the same thing can be said for counseling and all those kind of things. We're paying for it, but we're for some reason or another not taking advantage of it. Because is it new or is it foreign to us and things like that? So that's some of the things, is trying to, not doing anything, I'm trying to think, and I'm saying to take advantage. I'm not saying we're bending rules and stuff. It's like, it's a public thing,
Right.
Go enjoy a walk on the shoreline or around the lake, or, those kinds of things, or counseling. They have, or yoga. or Zumba, whatever it is.
Right.
Whatever you need.
And I recently took up golf. Like you said, I used to play basketball, and now my knees will not allow that. So I've taken up golf, and that just gives me time to just be outside and enjoy the fresh air. And I'm like with my fiance, we can talk, it's just relaxing.
Yeah. I mean, it's those kinds of things, just, and I guess when it's all said and done, and Natasha, I guess my thing is, we all live in a very, as a busy world, and it's just, if you go at 10 minutes without as an internet connection or without a cell phone, it's like, oh my God, I was, or
the end of the world.
Or the need to tweet something or to post something on Facebook or Instagram or, whichever it is, as TikTok. I've been trying just to find ways to slow things down and not be connected to whatever it is. So like golf, I'm a big fan of golf, and I love it because for those 4 hours or so, if you're golfing a full 18, there's, at least for me, if cell phones are off and whoever I'm golfing with, whether it be 2 or 4 people, whatever, that's my time to talk to those people and really get to know them, and it could be a complete stranger. And I talk to that person, when you're hitting, you hit. But then other than that, you're chit chatting when you're walking down the fairway. And and what as a better place could you be? You're walking in manicured grass, beautiful trees, and water. Or for me, I'm usually in the woods somewhere trying to find my ball. But still, I'm enjoying this nature and just slowing things down. Because, again, I think there's this urgency that and it's artificial pressure just to be fast. And sometimes life just needs to slow things down. The same thing can be said with food, right? I mean, we have, microwaves and what's those thing called? The air fryer and all this stuff about sous vide. Everything has to be fast. Just slow down, get a slow cooker, throw in some greens or whatever your thing is. Slow down, enjoy it. The meal, don't rush through it. Enjoy it. Have a conversation. Just slowing things down. Sometimes that's kind of how I try and get my mind right, if you will.
Yes. I like even eating dinner at the table because I push that a lot. Can we just sit down and eat, instead of being in front of the TV or being on your phone so we can talk,
Yeah. No, I mean,
any food tastes better anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, for our house, we have a rule. Phones are, we and put them off to the side. And no TV at all. And there's maybe the most we have is some light music, and that's usually music without sound or without words. So it's like jazz playing in the background. Mm-hmm. That's it. Then we talk. We have I'll call it as a game that we do every day. Or as we have dinner, we go around the table, and if it's just the 3 of us, my wife, my daughter, and myself, or if we have guests, we do the same thing. It's called the brave thing, the kind thing, and a new thing. So everyone around the table, we go around, and you have to say as a brave thing as you did that day. And it could be something, not brave like I jumped out of a building and saved a cat or whatever. It could be something simple. It was like I went up to a stranger and I saw that they dropped something and I gave it back to them, or that was brave because you could have just left it, but you were brave and you did whatever it is. A kind thing, something that could be a kind thing as well. And a new thing is like, as I met him as someone new today, and we talked about this, that, and the other, so just, again, slowing things down, but really helping to build as a structure around a conversation and helping me as an individual and hopefully our family to bring focus or bring those things into life. So when I'm when I'm waking up in the morning and going about my day, like, this could be a brave thing if I go and help this person lift this box into this, car, and whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I might have to try that one. Well, do you have any advice for the community moving forward? I know you gave a lot of good gems just now. So anything else you could think of?
I think probably the biggest thing is just for us to continue to and down this and the progress and that we've been making the last few years, as far as like I know for Public Works, for example, we have and the racial equity plan. I know that there is hopefully a number of people that are listening to this chat today that were as involved in that, and just making sure that we keep and pushing in the envelope and not being happy with just the fact that we've made the plan. And that was actually one of the things that, when I did leave, I was disappointed that I wasn't going to be able to see that all the way through, because I know that, a lot of the work that has went into it from the in the committee, and, don't let that be the end of it, because I know that, I was the acting director, and now Carla, who's I'm a huge fan of Carla and phenomenal, is there right now. And then there's going to be a new director coming on board soon, but just making sure that the Public Works family continues to push and those kinds of things, because hopefully that's going to lead to a continued change within Public Works, within the city family more broadly, and then hopefully that will eventually spread out to all of the and the communities that we work with. And then I think some of that, the good thing is those kinds of that change, that kind of as progress, that starts to leak into the individuals, their homes and things like that. So that's how you start to make as a bigger change. This may seem like it's only the racial equity plan for Public Works, but I am a firm believer that that's going to eventually lead to and broader changes across the community and in cultures and things like that. And going back to what I was saying, way before, that may lead to, and Natasha, and again, as I don't know this, but if you have kids or if you're going to eventually have children, when they may go into a classroom setting and your daughter may be the only Black girl in there, but then she may meet this other little girl that learned a lesson from her mom about something that involved in the racial equity plan, and how and cool would that be, that something that you guys started right now grew, a little acorn, you planted it, and that seed is going to, lead to some other kid, maybe, 5, 10 and years from now, talking about something that and her mom taught her during and the brave kind, and if a new thing, for example, that she played that day. And that little girl's kind thing was she went and talked to Natasha Reed's daughter, because she was the only one in the class that was the Black person or whatever like that. So that was her kind thing. And that made your daughter feel so special. And then those two, those are the kinds of things that trying to find ways that will build and connections over time. And it does. It is going to require us, as Black people, as Asian people, or whatever, to continue and to step out. And again, I'm not saying that's fair, because, and we shouldn't always have to do it. But if we don't, then you won't get any progress. So we may have to step out, but hopefully that next step forward, or will be towards us, will be the other side or other groups coming towards us to try and reach, and that shared goal in the middle. So that's my as my 2 cents.
Right. Well, thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you taking out the time to speak with us. We miss you here at Public Works again. And we just, thank you. Thank you for participating.
And thank you so much. Again, it has been a pleasure ever speaking with every you today. And as I'm looking forward to participating, hopefully, in some of the events and for later this month.
Yes, for sure.